Hello guys, welcome to Redditor's Revenge. Here we post amazing revenge stories daily. And if you want more content like this, please subscribe to the channel and stay tuned with us. Moving on to today's first story. I was looking at my wedding photos today and thought this community would appreciate my success. It's a bit long with all the background, so go make a cuppa and settle in. My mother-in-law hated me from the moment we met. Think evangelical Catholic meets goth atheist. I moved in with her son and had a baby without getting married, and she truly believed I was the devil incarnate sent to draw her baby boy into the depths of hell. There followed years of petty microaggressions, a constant barrage of manipulation and guilt-tripping, and doing things like offering to watch the kids then pulling out half-hour before, or buying the kids a puppy when we expressly said no and then blaming us when she had to take the poor thing back. She pushed over my motorbike, turned up at my work, tried to rearrange the furniture in our house, and constantly talked about God and Jesus in front of the kids, and told them they were going to hell because they weren't baptized. I went to VLC and things were quiet for a while. I never cared about getting married. I felt weddings were a waste of money. I'd rather have a boat or a new motorbike, but it was important to hubby, so I agreed, on the condition that it was not a church wedding. Apart from the generally problematic nature of the church, I experienced religious trauma growing up, and I wasn't prepared to compromise. Hubby agreed and we started planning. 2 days after we announced our engagement and too much wailing, gnashing of teeth, and general dismay, a priest arrived on our doorstep. He had been sent by mother-in-law to schedule a date for our wedding and book us in for premarital counseling. I was very nice to him after all. My issue was with the institution, not this poor guy, and thanked him for coming, and told him we wouldn't be requiring any Catholic services for the wedding. He looked sad and expressed he was a bit nervous to let MIL know. I offered him coffee and sympathy, and that was the start of an unlikely friendship. I was fairly annoyed by this stunt. I talked to my hubby, who at that time was so far in the fog that he couldn't see a hand in front of his face. He didn't see the big deal and asked me to just let it go. I thought about it for a day, then told him no. We had to address this immediately or it would escalate. I understood that he loved his mom and sisters, but that their obvious contempt for me was a problem. I don't like ultimatums, but by this point, I'd been putting up with it for about 6 years. I laid it out. We address it now, or no wedding. It went about as well as you'd expect. We visited and hubby tried to talk to her about how inappropriate her actions were. She screamed at him and cried, and then his sisters started on us both. Standing there, watching my hubby's heart break, my filter broke. I told them to stop, very loudly. Then, I told them that they were behaving like toddlers, that I was embarrassed by their antics, and to consider this their first and only warning. If they tried anything like that again or treated us with anything other than kindness and respect, not only would I cancel the wedding, I would tell their priest and all their friends about their disgusting behavior. If they wanted to be part of the planning, I would welcome their participation, but that hubby and I had the final say. Mother-in-law tried to speak, but I shushed her to like Dr. Evil shushing Scott, and we left. Hubby was distraught and I felt bad for him, but we got into couples counseling and things got better. Meanwhile, MIL and the SIL seemed to have taken things on board and were maintaining a frosty civility, although I was banned from their house because I scared them. Fast forward about 12 months, time for dress shopping. Ye gods, I hated the idea of a wedding dress. I hate pale colors, I hate dressing up, I hate dresses. Just everything about the idea made me want to fake a coma to get out of it, but I'd promised my own very JMM and brother that we could do this together. So Mum, MIL, 3 SILs, brother, and his wife all traipsed along with me to marvel at the sight of me in a dress, and it wasn't a bad day. The in-laws behaved and I found a dress that I didn't hate as much as the others. I paid for it and we left. The next day, I got a call from the shop. MIL and the SILs had ordered themselves the exact same dress as me. I told hubby and he didn't believe it. I laughed about it for a bit, went back to the shop, and ordered a new dress. This one was dark purple with black trim. And then I had the idea. I don't have a lot of female friends, but all my male friends have wives who had wedding dresses. And sometimes they say they feel sad that they spent all that money on a dress that they'll never wear again. I talked to hubby and he agreed, so the invitations went out and every person who had ever worn a wedding dress was invited to wear it to our wedding. MIL and the SILs got a different invitation that specifically asked that they not wear white. The dress code was stated as whatever you're comfortable in. I wasn't there for the initial confusion that swiftly turned to rage, but my mom and brother gleefully recounted the story later. All 4 of them turned up in their beautiful white dresses with their beautiful makeup and hair, and were completely absorbed by the rest of the crowd. They didn't stand out, they looked exactly like everyone else. Except for my mom and brother's wife, who wore purple like me, they weren't going to ruin my day by upstaging me. My hubby, who up to that point didn't think they would do something so vile, turned to stone that day. They had finally shown the depths that they would sink to, and the last of the fog was swept away. I turned up in the sidecar of a Harley. I did experiment with riding in the dress, but it didn't end so well, and the shop had to make a few emergency repairs the week before, and I walked down the aisle to the Imperial March by myself. My brother was my maid of honor and his wife was my hubby's best man. Remember the priest? Well, he wasn't allowed to officiate outside a church as a priest, so he was our MC. This was the icing on the cake because I saw Mil's face light up when she saw him, until he introduced the marriage celebrant and handed her the microphone. We had a pagan hand-festing, jumped over a broomstick, and walked back down the aisle to Sweet Child of Mine while our two kids played air guitar and danced ahead of us, and ignored Mil and the SILs when they tried to get them to go over there. I came face to face with my Mil at the door. She was incandescent with rage. She went to speak, but my hubby stepped forward, and he shushed her, right in front of everyone. It was glorious. She didn't speak to either of us for the rest of the night. She didn't speak to us for nearly a month. And then she called one day to ask to see the kids as if nothing had happened. So I let it go because my husband and I had won. But now and then I wear the purple dress when I know she'll be at an event, because I'm petty like that. Now, here is the end of our today's video, and I hope you enjoyed this petty revenge OP took on her entitled mother-in-law. Guys, I want to hear your thought about this story in the comments section, and if you had similar MIL encounters, please share it in the comments section. And, before you move to the next story, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to remain updated on more fantastic stories.
Now, moving on to our second story. For a little context, I work at a vape shop which is already in a rough space due to regulations and laws the government is putting on us. Due to this, we were well aware that certain products we sold, made were highly illegal and enforceable at any time. I, 25M, have been working at my job for a little over a year and a half. The owner of the company is the one who hired me and she was the biggest sweetheart in the world. Unfortunately, she was forced out of her company by her son. He is the type of person who believes that he is always right, and if you don't agree with him, he will completely ignore you or fire you. He forced his mom into retirement by threatening to unalive himself and continues to use that card every time. She even says she wants to come to visit. Last winter we had a massive snowstorm. Getting to work was rough, but we were told that we had to come anyway. We get there and the snow isn't plowed from the parking lot because he didn't want to pay the guy to do it, so we had to. Due to the lot being massive, we couldn't get it all done in time for us to help customers. As they came and went, we noticed the snow being patted down into the ground and essentially turning into a slip and slide. Of course, he didn't do anything about it and asked me and another coworker to clear all the garbage out of the other side of the building. When I did, I slipped and hurt myself. I didn't file for workers' comp but told them I'd need to rest myself while at work. The next shift I sat almost the entire shift, and because I couldn't do anything I sat on my phone, only to get up to help customers. The next day my manager tells me he got out of a meeting with the owner's son and I was suspended for a week, 5 shifts. As I'm a college student and rent an apartment and have car payments, I couldn't afford to lose 5 days of payment. I marched into his office and laid it out that either he fires me so I can collect unemployment or unsuspend me. He told me neither was happening and that he was gonna use me as an example to the rest of the employees. I was pissed and cursed him out. He doesn't like confrontation, so he shortened my suspension to get me out of the office. He then treated me poorly and singled me out for everything everyone else also does, but I was the only one being punished. Then comes the fact that he wanted to reconcile by forcing me to do handyman work around the place and didn't give me the tools, equipment, or training to do or use any of these objectives. This was the tipping point for me. The revenge. Due to being constantly singled out, I came to learn that everyone else was unhappy with this fact. I learned all the dirty little secrets about the company, including illegal products, labor violations, tax violations, etc. I used these secrets that I learned to call multiple government agencies and report him by name. First, OSHA came and inspected me on my day off. He told everyone they only cited him for a small violation and he was good other than that. I was angry at that, but a few weeks later I got a packet in the mail telling me he got cited for everything, and he was getting massive fines. I then get called into the office again by the manager who told me I was suspended. He proceeded to tell my manager that he was getting demoted for not writing me up more, and that I was no longer getting my raise until I fixed my attitude. This of course was right after he said, "I don't care that you called OSHA." This little act is known as retaliation, which is illegal to do to people who called a protected agency like OSHA. He refused to even look at me at this point because if he did anything that would imply he was punishing me for calling OSHA, I would have a lawsuit to destroy him. Now to today, another day off for me, and I get a text from a coworker at 11 a.m. That message was, "FDA is here. The manager quit and it's crazy." The FDA and IRS came rolling in full force in black trucks, SUVs. They came in and raided the place, seizing all illegal products and all the paperwork about the business. They're still there as I write this, so hopefully there will be more to come. But knowing how this works out, in most cases I won't have a job much longer and will be on unemployment. Update: the ATF also showed up. They confiscated all the house-made juices. We don't have a manufacturing license. None of us knew this, and that means we may no longer be able to sell products. The IRS showed up because there's a possible cause for an investigation into tax evasion. As I learn more, I will continue to update. Another update: it seems as though through talks with the lawyer, the son decided to take the heat for all of it and is going to have to pay massive fines and is possibly looking at jail time. He likely won't ever be able to get a manufacturing license for the rest of his life, and they said essentially that he won't be able to open any new businesses. I know he had 2 new locations rented out and in the process of opening, and those are never going to happen now. They're raiding his other business today, and that's going to be interesting considering that if he doesn't have the paperwork for that business, it could lead to much more jail time. So as of right now, even though my job isn't shutting down yet, his other business is getting raided. He can't open the 2 locations that he's put a shit ton of money and time into, and he's going to be fined all he's worth and possibly go to jail. Now, here is the end of our second story, and I hope you enjoyed the revenge OP took on his heartless boss. And before moving to the final story, guys, I want to hear your thought about this story in the comments section, and let me know if you were in OP's situation. What would you do? Now, moving on to our final story. Many years ago, I worked for an organization providing frontline customer service. It was a decent place to work, but our manager had lots of rules. One of the rules was that we could not do any personal printing with the printers at work. If we did, we were expected to pay 50 cents per page for black and white printing and $1 per page for color. I'm not sure who made this rule, but the manager was constantly reminding us. Our desks were not assigned, meaning any day you could be sitting at any desk, depending on your assigned tasks for the day. One day, I was interviewing for another job within the organization but at another location. Before the interview, the manager of the other location asked me if I'd mind printing a copy of my resume and bringing it with me as their printers were down for the day. I said no problem and figured I'd print it at work since it was work-related. I was sitting at a desk that did not have a printer at it. The closest printer was located between my manager's desk and an employee's desk, so I printed it and stood up to go get it. Before I go to the printer, my manager got there first. My print job went ahead of hers. When she saw what I had printed, she said, "OP, this looks like a personal print job." I explained it wasn't, but she disagreed and said since it had nothing to do with our day-to-day work, I had to pay $2 for 4 black and white pages. I begrudgingly paid up. I asked her what happened to the money and she said she always put it in the Christmas party fund. All right. A few weeks later, I was sitting at the desk with the printer at it. It was lunchtime and everyone except my manager agreed to go to a nearby restaurant for lunch. I walked out of our building and realized I forgot my wallet, so I quickly ran back in to get it. When I got to my desk, I could hear the printer going. I was curious about what was being printed as it was spitting out page after page. I quickly glanced at the pile and saw at least 100 pages printed in color, announcing a sweet 16 for Trista, our manager's daughter. It very obviously belonged to my manager. My manager came out of the bathroom a moment later and seemed shocked to see me standing there. I picked up the pile and passed it to her and told her our Christmas party fund was going to be getting a big boost. She said nothing but looked uncomfortable. A few weeks later, our district manager made his quarterly visit. He talked about the upcoming Christmas party and how excited he was about it. I decided it was time for some petty revenge. I raised my hand and said, "Just wondering how much we've accumulated this year for the Christmas party from print jobs." He looked so confused and asked me to explain what I meant. So I told him our manager's rule. He got really quiet and said he'd have to review this. The next day my manager sent an email saying the printing rule was something she was misinformed about and would be abolished immediately. Me, being the little shit disturber I am, hit reply all and asked what would happen to the already accumulated funds. Someone else said we should have a nice healthy fund for a pizza lunch and everyone agreed. The next day I hear my manager ordering 10 pizzas for lunch, also used her credit card to pay for it all. Do I think she was pocketing the printing money all along? Absolutely. But it was fun making her sweat and then having to spend nearly $300 the next day to make up for it. Edit. $30 for a large pizza is very standard where I'm from. I ordered a pizza for supper last night, and with tax, tip, and delivery I paid $36. Our manager ordered us pizza from Boston Pizza, a Canadian chain. Google them and you'll see their prices. Now, here is the end of our today's video, and I hope you enjoyed this petty revenge completion video. Guys, I want to hear your thought about this video in the comments section, and let me know if you want more video like this or not. And, before you leave, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel to remain updated on more fantastic stories.